So we welcome you, sir. Please start the
Yeah.
session.
So good evening to everyone, and a very pleasant uh, to be back to you with the chapter 2 of Rasaratna Samuchaya, and very happy to see that good achievement has gone through the chapter 1 and chapter 2. Primarily in the chapter 1, which we have already discussed, much of the things have been very much introspective by Acharya Vagbhata, wherein he has claimed about the general concepts of Rasashastra, the importance of mercury, how it is being attained, how it is being utilized, what is the clinical utility of mercury, and everything. So that was a something like a surprise to enter into the chapter 1. Chapter 2, he comes into the more details and the most finest parts. One thing to understand with the chapter 2 of the Rasaratna Samuchaya is he proves himself that he is a very great geologist. Once you go on reading the book of Rasaratna Samuchaya, second chapter, you'll come to know like Acharya Vagbhata is one such person sitting in the places of Sri Sailam. He just did not scribe some book and publish it. No, he did not do that. He has done lots of field survey. He has identified the substances there, and he could process it, and later on those substances were being documented after a clinical trial. So it's a total complete chapter of all the 8 drugs of Maharasa wherein he has been attributed. So primarily before entering into the concept of Maharasa, which is primarily dealt in the second chapter of Rasaratna Samuchaya, one thing I'll get to your highlight. Why did you had this breakup from most of the textbooks claiming like why Maharasa, why Uparasa, why Sadharana Rasa, why did they classify the substances in this way? And it was one of the finest ideology of Acharya Vagbhata to cluster them everything in Maharasa Varga in this way, Uparasa and Sadharana Rasa. Again, he proves himself to be a good geologist, a good chemist, and also he is a person with good pharmaceutical knowledge and a thorough clinical practice, which makes us to come across why this chapter was being written by Acharya Vagbhata. To be in short about very clear concept about what the Acharya want to say as basically it's about the Maharasas. One thing why it has been categorized under Maharasas, just a guesswork. It's not like anywhere in the textbook is mentioned this is the reason why we have made them into separate cluster of drugs. Many acharyas have got various opinions, but Rasaratna Samuchaya is almost a very unique of its kind to have this particular classification, and it is widely accepted textbook among the Rasa Shastra. And based on this particular thing, one thing I would like to highlight is all the Maharasas do have sattva in them. You go for Abraka, Vaikranta, Makshika, all drugs of Maharasa are having sattva. So sattva bahula dravyas, all of them are being clustered in Maharasas. They're having their good interaction with the mercury. That's a added advantage. Once you have sattva, what is a sattva there? Sattva is the essence part of it, and it's a metallic component most of the times. And all these metallic components get merged with mercury because mercury is very much affinity towards the metals. So on that grounds, it gets amalgamated or mixed up with most of the metals and mercury together. So immediately after mercury, the next chapter is discussing is about Maharasas or all the drugs which is having sattva bahula. It's not like the rest of the drugs are not having sattva. They do have. Like Hingula is having parada as a sattva in it. But here it is sattva bahula, and which they are stable. They are heat resistant, they are stable. The method of extraction is almost unique. They need high temperatures for extraction. So these are the basic things why we need this particular chapter of Maharasas. And based on this particular ground, he starts with the chapter with elaborating them. He explains them as Abraka, Vaikranta, Makshika, Vimala, Shilajatu, Sasyaka, Chapala, and Rasaka. So all of them do have sattvas, very high concentration of sattvas, and very important drugs or from the category of Maharasas, and out of them, two drugs are still more important. They make their as a limelight of Rasa Shastra. Once you start praising with Mercury, it's never ending. The next things which you need to praise to that extent is again these two drugs. One thing is Abraka, the second thing is Makshika. Why? Those two drugs are being categorized into Maharasa, but still these two drugs are to be praised a lot just because of the reason. You go for some other drugs like what you have here, like Sasyaka, which is having a sattva as copper. You go for some other drugs elsewhere like Kasisa, you have sattva as iron. So you have a single component, whereas Abraka and Makshika, it's not a single component. You are forming a new alloy there. What is Abraka? It is having aluminium, it is having magnesium, it is having potassium, it is having calcium, copper, everything. It is something like a mixture. So all these drugs are being compiled into one drug in the form of Abraka, and that particular Abraka Sattva, when you extract, that's totally a new metal. It's an alloy of so many substances there. You don't get Abraka Sattva in the periodic table also. Similarly, you don't get even Makshika Sattva in the periodic table. You're something new. You're again a step ahead than the chemistry. The chemistry people knew only up to the periodic table. They don't know anything other than the periodic table. You don't have any other elements other than the periodic table. But Abraka and Makshika are such drugs in Rasa Shastra, which is having a step ahead than the periodic table, wherein these substances are totally unique and they're totally different. This makes a sort of a wide spectrum of clinical utility. These two drugs make a sort of wide spectrum of clinical utility, which makes it so potent to happen with. And it gives a sort of, whenever you read the Falashruti of Abraka and Makshika, you'll come to know he names it as Sarva Vyadihara. Why it is acting on Sarva Vyadihara? We'll come across those shlokas now. Why it acts on Sarva Vyadihara? Because it's having a mixture of so many components within it. Because it is having a mixture of so many components, it is said to be very, very precious because it's not available to you elsewhere. You don't get it in one food substance. You don't have it in a particular combination anywhere. It's unique only in this drug. So if you want to get all these nutrients, you need to take it. You need to take Abraka, you need to take Makshika. In the form of Sattva, it is still good in case if you can do it. The methods are being explained, we'll come through them. And once you enter into that, the first shloka is about the list of Maharasas. The second thing what he is explained is in the shloka, he tells the futures of Gandhaka and Abraka as Devya Rajo Bhaved Gandho Dhatu Shukram Tatha Abrakam. This is a wonderful concept which is explained. He is explained about the Lord Shiva and his Retas in the form of Parada in the first chapter. Now it is about the Gauri Teja, where he explains about the Gauri Bija and Gauri Shukra. Because it is usually for the males where you have only the Shukra Dhatu, but for the female you have the Rajas, you have the Shukra. Both of them are unique compositions which you have, which is called as an essence or a reflection of your health. So he claims it to that of the Gauri. Gauri is Parvati. So Parvati Raja, you have Devya Rajo Bhavet Gandho Dhatu Shukram Tatha Brakam. So Devya Rajo Bhavet Gandham, in case if you have, how should I clinically interpret it, this particular shloka from Rasaratna Samuchaya? Devya Rajo Bhavet Gandham, generally what we take, Devi Parvati's Raja is being considered as Gandhaka, and Devi's Shukra is being taken as Abraka. Finish. There we end up. But it's not like that. Acharya Vagbhata is a very clinical oriented person. What did he do? How beautifully he's maintained it. I don't know whether he has really taken the lessons from Lord Shiva, but still he is a very clinical person. He speaks about Devya Rajo Bhavet Gandha. Wherever you have the patients with amenorrhea, where you have the Rajak Shaya, any of the Rajak Shaya Lakshanas in the female, give them with Gandhaka. Because you have a concept stating like rasam rasena vardati, raktam raktena vardati. In that way, raja rajena vardati. So what is a raja? You cannot ask a female to take a menstrual fluid. You ask them to take with that of Gandhaka. Gandhaka is Devi Raja. So you have any of the patient who is having amenorrhea. Might be it is because of PCOD, it is because of fibroid, because of some endometriosis or any of the complications of those kinds. The prime drug which you need to take is, you have to give them with that of Gandhaka. So whenever you have the complications associated with amenorrhea, like clinical presentations, try to give a composition which is with a higher concentrations of Gandhaka, wherein it does the Rajo Vruddhi. So whenever you want Rajo Vruddhi, then you're supposed to give the patient with Gandhaka preparations or high concentrations of Gandhaka. In case, the second half of the shloka, he explains about Dhatu Shukram Tatha Abrakam. Even this is compared to Parvati. So for the female, whenever you're expecting Shukra Kshaya Lakshanas, then you need to give her with Abrakabhasma. You find any of the female suffering from Shukra Kshaya Lakshana, Shukra Kshaya is not alone for the male, it is for the female also. It is not only for extending the progeny, it's not alone for making children. So Shukra, as per Ayurveda, is having a wide spectrum. It is having lots of functions in the body physiologically other than making children. So all these functions to be nourished, or where you find the Shukra Sara is not been seen in any of the female, then you are supposed to give them with that of Abraka. So this is the concept why what we do is in any sort of emaciation, any sort of degenerative changes, any sort of kshinata, dhatu kshaya lakshanas, either it is anuloma kshaya or pratiloma kshaya. In case if it is anuloma kshaya, where you have rasa dhatu, rasa and rakta upadhatu is rajas or arthava. Stanya and arthava are the upadhatus. Similarly, in case if it is a shukra, it is the last dhatu. So you have anuloma kshaya in the patient or pratiloma kshaya in the patient. The two drugs which you need to give is one thing is Gandhaka. In case if it is the pratiloma kshaya, then you are supposed to give them with Abraka. This is another way how you need to interpret this shloka. So there what happens, you have any of the patient suffering with anuloma kshaya, means first rasa kshaya, rakta kshaya, mamsa kshaya, medo kshaya, in that way. Then in all those patients you give them with Gandhaka, then his dhatu agni will become normal, then the patient will become quite active. In case if the person is suffering from pratiloma kshaya, that is from shukra kshaya onwards upwards, then in those patients try to give them with that of Abrakabhasma. Then you go on initiating it. This is the second way of how we interpret this particular shloka. You give this clinically and show the observation. I will say you will definitely have the response in your patients. You will definitely have the observation in your patients. You will appreciate the changes. So this is how you need to understand with the concept of anuloma kshaya and pratiloma kshaya. One thing, for the female gynec or obstetric complaints in amenorrhea, Gandhaka is given. In Shukra Sarata, when in case if it is affected, then Abraka to be given. And all these things is concerned to the female. So Devi, every woman is being praised as per our Indian custom as Devi. So Devya Rajo, in the sense it is Parvati, every female is Parvati. So on that grounds, we are considering Gandhaka and Abraka as a prime drugs which to be given for the female for most of the gynec and obstetric complaints. So this is how you need to interpret with this particular shloka. So I'll just try to see that I'll wrap up more of the shlokas because Abraka is being discussed already. So I'll try to see which is more important, we'll try to discuss it. So the next shloka comes with wherein Acharya speaks about Gauri Tejaha Paramamrutaha Vatapitta Kshayagnam Pragna Bodhi Prashamitham Rujam Vrushyam Ayushyam Agrim Balyam Snigdham Ruchidam Akafam Deepanam Shitaviryam Tatadyogehi Sakala Gada Rud Vyoma Suthendra Buddhihi. So this is a very wide spectrum of the clinical utility, how the Acharya is given for the Abrakabhasma. He tells about this particular Abrakabhasma is considered as Amruta. It is Paramamruta, wherein it is extensively used in Vata and Pitta Kshaya. See, I already said you in all the Kshayaja conditions, whenever you have the patient suffering from Vata and Pitta Kshaya Lakshanas, you are supposed to give them with Abrakabhasma. In case if you have Tridoshaja or Sannipataja, then you need to add up more drug into this. It is more clinically active in Vata and Pitta Kshaya, not in Tridosha Kshaya. In case if it is with Tridosha Kshaya, then you need to see that you need to add up another drug. Might be it is Shilajatu, might be it is some Gugulu compound or anything of that kind, which can control or manipulate Kapha. Pragna Bodhi, wherein he speaks about, wherein the drug can be given in all the autoimmune conditions or malignancy like pathologies. Why? Because Pragna Bodhi, your body is forgotten that how it has to function. It has lost its memory. It is being coded during our birth, stating like the liver has to function like liver, pancreas has to function like pancreas. But instead, the liver cells start to grow in pancreas, then it is called as malignancy, because atypical cells seen elsewhere, it is called malignancies. The cells have lost its pragna, so that it is been dividing or multiplying irresponsibly. It's not like they grow in a very periodic way how it has to. Irrelevantly it cultivates, irrelevantly it grows. So in those conditions, you're supposed to give them with that of pragna bodhi set of drugs. Among that, abraka is one such component. So where do such conditions happens? One thing is malignancy. Second thing where you find this pragna bodhi like a context is autoimmune disorders. Your body forgets about recognizing its own condition, then your body starts to hurt by itself. This is autoimmune condition. It loses its capacity of identifying that it's your body is supposed to protect. Instead, it start attacking its own body. So such condition is called autoimmune disorders. You have many autoimmune disorders clinically enumerated, very commonly seen in Indian people is you have rheumatoid arthritis, you have ulcerative colitis, you have malignancies, you have systemic lupus erythematosus, you have all these clinical conditions which is very commonly seen in OPD practice. So whenever you have all these conditions, then you're supposed to prescribe to your patient with the drug which is having pragna bodhi. Pragna bodhi, don't alone take it as medhya. Medhya is different, which increases your memory power. But it's not medhya, he uses the term pragna bodhi. You have done some pragna parada, your cell has done some pragna parada, your cell has lost its pragna, the viveka shakti, which is good, which is bad, which is right, which is wrong. Then you need some drug of these kinds, which is called as pragna bodhi, which can really stimulate your cellular mechanism in the body. Where you need mitosis, you need to do mitosis. Where you need meiosis, you need to go for meiosis. This is about the cell division. So in the similar fashion, you have to go with your body. This is normalcy, this is physiology. But if this derails, then you land up into malignancies or autoimmune conditions. So in those conditions, you are supposed to give the drugs of these kinds, like that of abraka. This is what claimed by Acharya Vagbhata in this particular shloka. Next is prashamitam rujam. So it is good for as a painkiller. It is a tremendous drug to reduce pain. This is the reason why we prescribed abrakabasma in all pain-related conditions, like might be it is sciatica, cervical spondylitis, or any of the conditions related to pain pathologies. Wherever you have the pain pathologies, you are supposed to give them with abrakabasma. Then vrushyam ayushyam agram. See, again, he speaks about the same context which I said in the previous shloka. Vrushya is for the pratilomakshaya, ayushya is for the rasarakta. So it is anulomakshaya and pratilomakshaya. It is rasadi dhatu sukshinata, where you need ayushya set of drugs or rasayana set of drugs. Pratilomakshaya, where you need shukra adi dhatus, where you need shukrala dravyas. So on that grounds, he speaks about the same thing, vrushyam ayushyam, and he speaks about agram. It is agra aushadhi. It is one of the best aushadhi. It is among the agra sangrana, like wherein you can give for either of the kshinata. You have patients suffering from osteoarthritis, where you have degenerative changes in the knee. You have the patient with lumbar spondylitis, where you have degenerative changes in the spine. You have a patient with cerebral atrophy. It is degenerative changes of the brain, which is very commonly seen in senile changes, geriatric practice. In all such conditions, you are supposed to prescribe them with that of abrakabasma. I will say single drug abrakabasma is sufficient to cure your patient from all degenerative changes. You have muscular atrophy, you have any of the conditions like emaciation, cachexia. Cachexia is where you have a weight loss because of cancer. So any of such conditions where you got emaciated, debilitated, or all the conditions of such pathologies, abrakabasma is the best drug to be given, because this is what Acharya speaks about. Vrushyam ayushyam agrim. It is agra aushadhi. It is agra aushadhi in those contexts. Next is balyam, straightforward. Snigdham, it is going to increase the affinity. Snigdham, in the sense we take it in two senses. One thing is it increases the oleation in the body, which is snigdha rupa, which is very much beneficial for the maintenance of the homeostasis. Every cell has to have a sort of elasticity within its wall. Every cell is having a lipid layer within it, lipid content within it, which retains the elasticity of the cell. It has to shrink, it has to bulge, just like the heart. Every cell is considered as a heart. That is the reason why we say Reti Dadati Ayati, Hridayam. So on that context, every cell is having that action, and this action is being maintained well because of the snigdhatva. Snigdhatva is, might be take it a lipid profile or lipid content, fat content, whatever you want to name it. I don't want to name it with a modern equivalent. It is snigdha dravya. So this snigdha dravya helps you in this condition. Where do you need this condition? Why you want this snigdhatva? One thing where you need this snigdhatva is where your cells have lost its capacity of elasticity. The very basic thing where you need is cosmetic. You turn aged, your cells start to have the elasticity is lost. Then you need abrakabhasma to increase the snigdhatva of the body. The second thing, lung fibrosis, chronicity of the diseases. Where you have the lung fibrosis, the cell death has happened. Parkinson's, cell death and cell weakness has happened there. You need that snigdhatva. The cell has lost its capacity to pump. The cardiac, where it's lost its capacity to pump. Cardiac function altered because of left ventricular hypertrophy, or you have the hypertrophic managements where you have the conducting defects of the heart. In all those conditions, you're supposed to give them with abrakabhasma. If you people can remember, one such component very choosingly you have is Nagarjuna Brarasa. It is having a single drug. It's only abrakabhasma, give bhavana with Arjuna Kvata. So Arjuna Kvata, just because we want more Rudya action there, but basically Abraka itself is Rudya because it retains. Heart is one such organ which is always pumping and coming back to its position. So you want this mechanism to happen in a normalcy, you have to give abrakabhasma. Most of the components, which is a wide spectrum cardiac tonics, do have abrakabhasma as a component. One such example, I'll say you make a Prabhakaravati with abrakabhasma as an ingredient. You see the response in the patient. How tremendously you have the response in your patients. This is what abrakabhasma can do to your patient. This is the reason why the terminology called as a snigdha is being mentioned. Snigdha, don't alone take it as oleation. Don't alone take it as oleation, just giving a sort of oleation therapy in the body. No, this is a wide spectrum how Acharya has given us. Next is Ruchidam, Akafam, Deepanam, Shitaviryam. See the Vichitra Pratyarabdha, you have the composition here. This is a fancy of rasa practice. This is the fancy of rasa practice. How beautifully the Acharya has innovated this drug. It is Deepana, immediately it is Shitavirya. Normally Deepana Dravyas or Ushna Viryas. Normally this is what you see. Deepana Dravyas or Pachana Dravyas are usually with Ushna Virya, but here it is Deepana and Shitavirya. This is Vichitra Pratyarabdha. You have many such clinical conditions wherein you need to do the Deepana property in the patient, but it should not create a hot flush in the patient. It should not be Ushnavirya. The patients are with Pitta Prakriti. The patient is having for some Pitta Vikriti conditions, but the patient is unable to take Ushnavirya substances. I'm happy to give him with some drugs like Chitrakadivati or anything of those kinds, but I'm unable to give it because he's unable to bear that Ushnata of the drug. So in such conditions, Abraka is a very safe drug which can be given. It is Shita, irrelevantly it is also Deepana. So it is going to increase the Deepana quality in the patient, it is going to become Snigdha, and also it is Shitavirya. See the Vichitra Pratyarabdha there. Atypical combination of the drugs, and this is a fancy of Rasaushadhi. You have many such drugs in the syllabus which is having this Vichitra Pratyarabdha. This is how we need to go for interpreting the shloka. This is how we need to decode the shloka so that it is clinically utilized for a proper way. And also Ruchidam Akafam. It is going to increase the Ruchi, anorexia nervosa or any of such conditions are being solved out, and it is having Makafam, the kapha, what you have. Tadad yogai sakala gada rud vyoma sutendra buddhihi. So this is one such drug, Sutendra Bandhihi. So this is one such drug which is with a combination, it can become a best Yogavahi. Tatad Yogai, it can act as a Yogavahi Dravya. This can act as a very beautiful, with various combinations. It can have a multifaceted action. So that's the reason why Tatad Yogai, Sakala Gada, Rudvyoma. So it can be used in many conditions, many clinical conditions. Sutendra Bandhihi, it is one such a drug which can be used as a Sutendra Bandh in the Bandhan of Parada. So I'll take a bandhana of Parada in again two sense. One thing is Parada Bandhas, which you will be reading in Rasaratna Samuchaya as well. But still, most of you will be knowing what was the Bandhas of Parada. It is helpful for doing the Parada Bandha. The second thing, how I interpret this particular thing. How should I take? Because Bandhas, frankly to speak, it's no more popular. I don't know how many people are really doing all the types of bandhas and taking them for any of the Dhatuvada or Dehavada today. But still, the way how I take the drugs in my sense of understanding the Sutendra Bandihi is, you have some formulations wherein you want mercury to retain in the end product. Say, for example, Mrutyunjaya Rasa is one such composition wherein it is having a mercurial component like Hingula. There is no Abraka Basma there as a normal monogram for the Mrutyunjaya Rasa. But due to some reason, might be you are heating it, might be you are processing it, might be you are formulating a patent drug as Mrutyunjaya Rasa as one composition, and you are adding some other drugs into it, and you are processing it and giving it to the patient. I'm always in a fear that Parada might skip away from the practical because it cannot resist high temperatures, and many times it can miss away from the practical. This is very common for the people who do the mercurial preparations. Controlling mercury is a great challenge. It's not that easy. But in case if you are processing it with mercury, with Abraka holds it. Sutendra Bandihi, it will arrest mercury for some time, it will arrest it. So you don't want the mercury to skip away from the practical. You don't want the mercury to go away from the practical. Maybe you're going for a potoli preparation, you're going for Kupi Pako preparation or anything like that. If at all you have an option like you can add Abraka into that, then that could be an excellent composition. That could, because it doesn't make the mercury to go outside. It makes it to stay back. It makes the bandhana of the Parada. This is one sense. The second sense, what I would like to take is, I have given some mercurial composition to the patient. Then I want the bioavailability of the mercury for a longer time in the body. Then what I do, I take it along with Abraka Basma. Say, for example, I have a mercurial composition like that of Mrutyunjaya Rasa because I am suffering from fever. So what I do, I take Mrutyunjaya Rasa, but I want to see somehow like the Mrutyunjaya Rasa, the mercurial component of the Mrutyunjaya Rasa should act for a longer time, or the bioavailability of the Mrutyunjaya Rasa should be increased in my body. Then what should I do? I take it along with Abraka Basma. So once I take it along with Abraka Basma, Mrutyunjaya Rasa along with Abraka Basma increases the bioavailability of the Mrutyunjaya Rasa in the body so that it will have a good therapeutic action. You have given it for a Jwara patient with Mrutyunjaya Rasa, wonderful. You have given him with 1 TDS, wonderful. But you want the bioavailability of the drug to be seen for a longer time duration or for a good therapeutic evaluation, then you give them with that of Abraka Basma. This is another way how we take it as Sutendra Bandihi. See, this is not from the commentary or the straightforward references from Rasaratna Samuchaya, but this is a way how I interpret with Rasaratna Samuchaya and use it in my practice. This is based on my experiences after reading Rasaratna Samuchaya. So I thought I'll be sharing such things to you. Instead of going for the synonyms and other things in general, these things could be beneficial for us, wherein we can go for a rasa practice. So this is about what is explained in the second shloka. The third shloka is about wherein he explains about Rajahasta Pramana, that he proves himself to be a good geologist. He was a good clinician till now. Now he proves himself like he's a good geologist. Why? Because in third shloka, wherein he is speaking about whenever you would like to take Abraka, you need to take it from a depth at least of 1 Rajahasta Pramana. You should take it at least from a depth of 1 Rajahasta Pramana, or else the one which is available on the superficial is not good. The one which is, it is considered as Varjya. It should not be taken. The Abraka which is on the superficial is said to be of waste, or which is not having any sattva. Why? What happens to it? What are the components you have with that of the Abraka Basma? You have iron, copper, magnesium, manganese, aluminium, all this potassium. You have all a mixture of components. Much of these components are very sensitive for oxidation. So once you have the oxidation, the mica is being laid on the superficial surface, which is being exposed to rain, exposed to air, exposed to the environmental conditions. all these components gets corroded or oxidized. Much of the substances are being removed or it is being evacuated. So the superficially available Nisattva Rupa mica or the abraka is called as schists. SCHISTS. It is called as schists, which is very easily available to you in case if you are traveling in many places of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. I have done my geological survey at least for 14 years in these zones, wherein I could find lots of schists there. So this schists, what happened is lots of things because of the oxidation process, it is very brittle. I say you take a small stone of abraka, which looks like abraka, but it doesn't have elasticity. Even the patras are cracked. They are very small. They are very tanupatram. They are very small patras there. And they are absolutely of no therapeutic use. They are available superficially. You travel across in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, abundantly this is available. And this is what Acharya has explained. The superficial one or Nisattva Rupa. The depth one, which is Rajahasta Pramana, which is away from the oxygen, or it has not been exposed to the oxygen. Oxidation process is not there. Then that abraka is having Sasattva Yukta. Why it is having Sasattva Yukta? Because this particular one is not making any of the oxidation process because it's anaerobic. It's in absence of air, which is Rajahasta Pramana, which is depth of Rajahasta Pramana. So this particular thing should be considered as a serious thing, and it should be collected only from the deeper zones, not from the superficial zones. This is very true even today, or you read into any of the geological textbooks or mineralogy textbooks, this is what is being explained. Those are the books which are written in 20th century, whereas Acharya Vagbhata has written about this comment on 13th century itself. So he is a real geologist or a mineralogist to write about this particular shloka 3. So similarly, you have the next shloka wherein he explains about the types of abraka. He further proves himself to be a good mineralogist. You have the context wherein explaining about the types of abraka. He explains about the 16 types of abrakas there. He tells about Pinaka, Naka, Manduka and Vajrabraka. Again, he speaks about Shweta, Rakta, Pita and Krishna. So again, each variety with each of things, it becomes with the permutations and combinations with around 16 varieties. 16 varieties of abraka is being explained. And the test is being given there. He speaks about what are the characteristics of Pinaka abraka, what are the characteristics of Manduka abraka, or the types of abrakas, whatever is explained. All of them are very true even today. How do you identify them? You just keep it on the fire or any furnace, you still find the substance of abraka jumping. Why does the jump happens? Whether it moves like a snake or it moves like a frog, or what happens to it, and all these things, it's happened just because of air traps. There is called as something called as air, which is present in between the abracapatra as per the mineralogy, and all these air traps, when you keep it on the fire, which it becomes irresistible, it cannot sustain the temperature, it tries to skip away from the abracapatra. So when it is trying to skip, it makes various noises, it makes various way because of the pressure inbuilt within it. It tries to jump away from that area because you are giving heat treatment there, Agni Sannikarsha. It moves away from there with various means, and those things are said to be rejected. Acharya says should not be taken. How beautifully he has done the microscopic mineralogy there. He could identify the presence of air in between the abracapatra, which makes it to skip away from the practical or away from the fire, whereas a Vajrabraka doesn't happen like that. Why? Because Vajrabraka doesn't have large amount of the air traps. It is having very, very minimum or no air traps within it. That's the reason why Vajrabraka can resist temperature. And it doesn't have that amount of huge variation with that of heat treatment. So again, this is a mineralogical context where he is explaining about the air traps within the abracapatra. So air traps within the abraka, what happens? You might ask me a question, sir, what will happen in case if there is an air trap? However, we are giving with heat treatment, it will go away. So let we use those things only. Pinaka Naga, what will happen? Acharya has given about the complications related to it. Might be because Acharya Vagbhata is told we will consider it. He speaks about it causes prameha, it causes kushta, it is used in Rajata Karma, it is used in Swarna Karma. Okay, fine, wonderful. All those contexts will not go into the deeper part because we are not doing gold and silver today. But still, to come up with an outfit of what we need to understand with this particular context is those air traps which is inbuilt within it alters the chemical composition. One thing I will say very clearly, how do you find the crystals being formed from the volcano? You need to know about one thing. There is lots amount of chemical reaction which is happening in the mantle of the earth. Because of the volcano, lots of these minerals are being thrown away from the volcano and they fall elsewhere. Once it is been falling elsewhere, what happens? The lava wraps and there is an oxygen which has been trapped within the bubble of it, and this whole bolus falls elsewhere. And because of this, there is a chemical reaction which is happening between the oxygen and the elements which is present in the lava, which makes it to form various crystals, which forms various minerals. You know, there is a crystal called as geodes. Geode in the sense, a cluster of minerals. You have beautiful crystals which are being formed. It's because of this particular mechanism. This was known to our Acharya Vagbhata. So these air traps gives a sort of a different chemical compositions, which we don't want in Abraka. When we are taking Abraka, we want only Abraka there. We don't want some other elements to come up there. So when you have the air trap, there is a oxidation reaction which is going on, which loses the sattva of the Abraka, which is not to be taken and which is not active therapeutically. Instead, what you need to do, you need to take the substances which doesn't have the air traps within it. When you don't have the air traps, then there is no oxidation reaction which is happening, even though you have taken it from the one Rajahasta Pramana, that is the depth of it. It doesn't have any of such things which is present within it, and added to that, they'll not have any oxidation process within it, and also it's not going to cause any complications or discomforts to your patient. So he is a clinician, he is a geologist, he is a mineralogist, so he is a mythologist, he knows everything. He is a multidimensional person who has formulated this 3 or 4 shlokas. The next thing is, this is what the context about all the types of abrakas which is being explained. I'll not go about the colors and other things which is mentioned there, which is very straightforward. Where we have the discussion part, we'll try to go for that. And he tells about the Rakta Karma, Shweta Karma, those things comes under Dhatuada. So I would not like to go into much of the Dhatuada context here. He explains about the complications related to that. And also later on, he explains about the best variety is the black variety, that is a Krishna Vajra Braka, where you don't have much of the air traps. And those are the things which are supposed to take it for the practicals, which is considered to be the best variety. Why it is looking black in color? This is the next question. See, where you have biotite, you have lipidolite, and all these types of abrakas, whatever you have, it's basically mica. But all of them do have some trace elements in alteration. That's the reason why they're having presenting with various colors. Similarly, the Krishna Vajra Abraka, it's having higher concentrations of iron, which makes it more sasattva yukta. That's the reason why it reflects black color. And it doesn't have oxidation process within it that makes it more and more opaque. Say, for example, you take the Shweta Abraka. You take the Shweta Abraka and try to see through it. It is many times transparent. Almost, I don't use the word translucent. It is transparent. But you take the Krishna Vajra Abraka, it's really not very transparent. It is transparent, but not very transparent. Many times they're opaque. But still it's a good variety. Don't take transparency as a criteria for selecting Abraka just because of the reason the Grahya Lakshana did not mention about the transparency. We have explained only about the context there, wherein the Krishna Vajra Abraka, because of the high concentrations of iron, there is no air traps, no oxidation process. That's the reason why it is with a higher concentration of metallic components there. That's the reason it is considered to be the best part of Abraka Bhasma, or the Abraka which you need to select. So he speaks about the Grahya Lakshanam as snigdham prutudalam varna samyuktam bharato adhikam sukha nirmocha patrancha tadabram shastamiritam. As I said, much of the context is quite clear now to justify. Why? Snigdham, of course. Snigdham is where you have the good elasticity. The snigdham there in the therapeutic properties for the pharmacodynamic and pharmacokinetic properties, whereas the snigdham present here is on the mineralogical properties of it. How? You have the snigdham guna in that, only then you have the elasticity in the mica. You don't have snigdha guna there, then you take it and crush it like this, the mica converts into powder. Then it's of no use because it is nisattva yukta. Then it becomes nisattva. Only if it is having the snigdha guna, then it is elastic. And the whole process of abraka basma, giving it for 30 putta, 50 putta, is only to remove the snigdha guna. You remove the elasticity nature of abraka and make it into a dry powder, a nano powder. Possibly you name it as abraka basma. So this is what you need to remove. To remove this snigdhatva, you are processing it for 30, 50, 100,000 puttas. So you are altering the gunadharma of it. But that is a Grahya Lakshana because you need to select a appropriate one. So snigdham, the first one. Next thing is a prutudhalam. So it is having prutudhalam where you can easily separate. It is having separate sheet-like, flake-like. It is called as a total cleavage. It's a perfect cleavage. In the mineralogical language, it's called as a perfect cleavage wherein you can easily separate the sheets. Why? Why did he use this word? When you read the textbook of mineralogy, wherein he explains when two sheets of abraka, when they are being mixed up like this, or it is being crisscrossed like this, then what happens? That particular abraka is going to having a sort of a mismatch because the crystals, the cleavage is in abraka is always total and perfect. Means like this, easily it is separable. In case if the crystals were arranged like this, then separating them is difficult, because they are interlocked. But here, the mineralogical language speaks about the cleavage which is easily separable, It is called as a perfect cleavage, where you can easily remove them. This is a ideal quality of abraka, even as per mineralogy, but even Acharya is explaining about prutudhalam. They are separate flakes. Prutudhalam is separate flakes. They are separate sheets there. Varna samyuktam. For what purpose you want to take that varna should have? We want a therapeutic action, so we are taking Krishna Vajrabraka. So we want to take the black variety, the biotite variety of it. Bharato adhikam. Why did he use Bharato adhikam? What you need in context of bhara? How do you need it? When you read the crystal identification, he speaks about the density, the specific density of the crystal. That is called as bharata. Bhara is nothing but the specific density. How does the particular crystal is having the specific density? What's importance of it? Based on the specific density, you judge about the concentration of metals or the components of that particular mineral. So here, in case if it is having all the components of the abraka, like you have iron, you have whatever the things you have as an essence part of it, only then it is bharato adhikam. You don't have copper, iron, magnesium, which are heavy metals in that. In case if it doesn't have, then you don't have bharato adhikam. It turns out to be very light, which is very commonly seen in Shwetabraka. When you see, and Raktabraka is still commonly seen because there you have lots of chromium, which is more. That's the reason why it is red in color. The Raktabraka is where you have the red in color. It's because of higher concentrations of chromium. Whereas in Krishna or Vajrabraka, it is high concentrations of iron. So iron is a heavy metal, copper is a heavy metal. Because of these heavy components, you are making it to become more and more heavier. That's the reason Bharato adhikam. Sukha nirmocha patrancha, easily separable, which we have discussed already, wherein the cleavage is very perfect, wherein you are supposed to separate it very easily. Tadabram shastamiritam. He tells about everything, whatever is related to being an ideal mica. You want to take an ideal biotite. These are the best features as per the mineralogical language, which is being enumerated by our Acharya. So this is how we need to consider it. The next thing he speaks about is Sa Chandrikam cha kithabam vyomam na grasayed rasaha. So Parada cannot take the abraka which is lustrous or looking like mandura, which is mandura is what you take in the derivative of iron. So he says like that should not be taken, that variety should not be taken. Only such abraka which can be taken with loha karma, converting the lower metals into higher metals, only those things should be taken. And also this variety like the Krishna Vajrabraka for instance, which is very good as a rasayana, which is considered as to be the best variety, which is considered as a best variety, should be taken. And also he warns you stating like Nischandratva and Sachandratva. Always try to keep this in mind whenever we speak about the Bhasma Siddhi Lakshanas. It is only for Abraka where we consider Nischandratva. Unfortunately, people have considered a Nischandratva as a common protocol for all the Bhasma Siddhi Lakshanas. You read the Paribhasha Prakarana where he speaks about the Mrutaloha Lakshana, their Nischandratva is not there. One Nischandratva is specific for the Abraka Bhasma. Don't expect a Nischandratva as a rule, hard and fast rule for all the metals and minerals. No. When you read the textbook of Ayurveda Prakasha, he explains it clearly. Tamra Bhasma, when you do Paradamarita, it should be Sachandrika Yukta. In case if Paradamarita Tamra Bhasma, it is Sachandrika Yukta, then it is considered to be the best variety of Tamra Bhasma. But unfortunately, people have come to a notion stating like all of them should use Nischandratva Bhasma because Abraka Bhasma is Nischandratva. No, only that is a hard and fast rule for Abraka Bhasma, not for all the Bhasmas. But still, people have gone through it. They want to see that there is no metallic component in the end product, and that's the reason why people have come across between this particular context of taking the substances. So on that particular ground, he speaks about there are few people where they have advice for the Patra Braka without Shodhana and Marana, which can be used as Rasayana purpose. Yairuktya is somebody. Yukti Nirmuktaihi, Patrabra, Rasayanam, Tair Drushtam, Kalato Kotyakyam, Visham Jivano Hetave. He speaks about, but don't take such things where you don't do Shodhana and Maran because they are equivalent to Kalakuta. They're going to kill the person. So if you don't do the Samyak Abraka Bhasma Nirmana, if you don't do proper Shodhana and Marana, then the person is going to die because it's equivalent to the Kalakuta. It's equivalent to the Kalakuta Visha. You're not supposed to use it. The next context which he explains about the Shodhana and Marana, possibly all of you knows about it, so I'd like to go away from this. Prataptam saptamarane kshiptam kanjika abrakam nirdosham jayate nunam prakshiptam vapi gojale trifala kwatite chapi kavam dugde visheshataha. So the whole context is giving the various methods of Shodhana and Marana. They are straightforward. You need to interpret them only on the clinical grounds, but the method of preparation which is given to us there, it's straightforward. And much of almost every one of us would have already done this practical as Abraka, Shodhana and Maran. So I'd like to go away from those practicals. So that is about the method of Shodhan and the Marana. Next he speaks about the Dhanya Braka. So Dhanya Braka Nirmana and Dhanya Braka method, how it should be taken. And later on, how he is asking us is Churnabram, Shali Samyuktam, Vastrabaddam hi Kanjike, Niryatam, Mardanat, Vastrat Dhanyam, Abramiti Kathyate. So the way how he used to powder it, you need to powder it. Because the patras cannot be subjected for the Bhasma Nirmana. So he asked you to go for within the Shali Dhanya, keep it in Kanji. By keeping it in the Kanji, much of the Snigdha Guna has been absorbed by it. So it becomes a temporarily Ruksha because you keep it for 3 days or 5 days or 7 days, depending on the reference which you're following with in the form of Dhanya Nirmana. And during that time, you macerate it with your hands within the kanji so that the content of that snigdhatva is being lost temporarily and it attains a bit of rukshata by which you get fine powder of abraka churna, which is taken or it is named as dhanyabra ready for the marana process. So that is how it should be taken. Next is about the Marana Siddhanta, where he explains the methods of Marana. The various methods of Marana are being enumerated, some 2 to 3 types. Next, he explains about the Sattvapatana of the Abraka. As I claimed already, it's a very unique composition, the way you get a different alloy, which is not there in the periodic table. So you are having a new element which no chemistry person knows about. It's there in your syllabus, and that's how you need to go with the Sattvapatana and other methods. Possibly the other teachers would have already covered much of the topics, so I try to skip away from all these things. Even the Sattva Shodhana, Sattva Marana, how do you do the Mrudikarana of the Sattva, which is explained in 38 shloka. Marana of Abraka Sattva again there. In case if you can go for Abraka Sattva Marana, then it is hats off to you. It's an excellent formulation wherein you can see possibly it becomes one of the most potent drug which is available to you in Rasa Shastra. How best you can use it in the clinical protocol. So this is about the various ways of making the sattvas. And next he explains about the Abraka Dhruti. Of course, many times it has been explained like Dhruti is not seen. It is only written or which is only heard of from the other people. It's not done practically. This is what the most of the textbooks claims about. So the next thing is about Vinashambho Prasadena Na Siddhyanti Kadachana, the 52 shloka. He speaks about Dhrutayo na eva nirdishtaha shastre drushta api dhrudam. It is clearly explained in the textbook, but nowhere it is being seen or no one has done it. For that he claims in 52 shloka as Vinashambho Prasadena na Siddhyanti Kadachana. So without Shambhu Prasada or without the Shambhu Ashirvada, it is not possible to do any of such formulations like the Dhruti Kalpana. So many times this is possible. Dhruti Kalpana was a fact. There are many people who have witnessed it. There are many books in Indian mythology, and also there are certain books which were once upon a time even in Banaras Hindu University. They were being inscribed with rubies and emeralds, which is converted into ink, and it was being written. When you touch on the paper, it looks like it has been embossed. But I doubt none of those books have been heard or seen in the recent era. This is what my teachers or the people who have read these books have claimed. They've said like it's available in a secured portion of the oldest libraries in India. So there are some Dhruti Kalpanas wherein you have converted various metals and minerals in the form of a liquid state, and it was being used for writing some sacred or important books. So this is about the Dhruti Kalpana. So the next thing is about the Vaikranta. So I think, shall we take Vaikranta sometimes later?
So as you say.
Yeah, because I think Vaikranta, once you start again, it will be a quite lengthier discussion. And it's better like once you start, let the whole chapter get over. And Vaikranta is a Sandigdha Dravya. Again, you need to remove the controversies of Vaikranta because what you need to take, why you need to take and all. So I think, shall we discuss that about in sometimes later?
Yeah, sure, sir.
Huh?
Sure, sir. So there's one question regarding Sattvapatan.
Yeah.
Sir, we haven't heard or seen in practical the formation of Sattva. Like in market also commercially bhasmas are available, but nowhere we see the Sattva formulation. So are they commercially available? I don't think they're available. So are they easy enough that we can make them?
Yeah, definitely you can do it. It's really not a great process. Only thing you need to have for the Sattva Nirmana is try to have a good batti, a furnace. Especially nowadays, the things are really very good. You have wonderful furnaces where you are easily able to reach around 2000, 3000 degrees and all. Very conveniently you can reach the temperatures. And that is very much possible once you have done it Because the chief component, the chief mechanism of making Sattva-Patana is you take the substance and heat it to a very high temperature. The metallic component of it reaches to the melting point. Once it reaches to the melting point, all these metals get combined because metals are having a link. There is a metallic bond which happens between the two metal components, and everything you get it in the form of a bolus. And that can be used or processed for any of the further processings. So it's really not a great job of doing Sattva-Patana. The great job is you need to purchase or try to procure or hire a Sattva-Patana yantra, that is a good furnace. You have it with a mechanical blowers. Possibly when we were students and all, we did not have mechanical blowers. We had only a manual blower, where we need to plow it. Like you need to blow, then you need lots of energy. Literally we used to get drenched with burning bags and bags of charcoal. But nowadays you got all sort of equipments wherein we are able to reach high temperatures with no laborious process. So just to place Dhanya Braka into that, you get Sattva-Patana. It's quite easy. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions, sir? Yes, we have. Sir, what is that shining particle in Parad Marit Tamra Bhasma?
It's nothing but the Parada which has attained its Sukshmatva Prapti. When you read the Ashtadasha Samskaras, you come across a context called as Garbhadruti and Bahyadruti. So this context you get it especially when you are dealing with that of any of the Bhasma Nirmanas. This mercury tend to go into the element that is called as a Garbhadruti. It enters into the cellular components, which makes it to become the shining, because part of the basic feature is shiningness. So it gives that shiningness, and even separating those glittering particles there gives you a high concentration of copper, gives you a high concentration of mercury. But that particular Tamra Bhasma, whichever you have incinerated, which is Sir Chandrika Yukta, we have taken it and rubbed it across a copper plate or any of the metallic plates just to see, because high concentrations of mercury can attack or affect any of the metallic plates, like might be it is copper or aluminum. You rub it, you find a sort of discoloration, or the metal, how the mercury attacks. But we did not find it with Sir Chandrika Yukta Tamra Bhasma. So mercury is not in the outer portion of it. Mercury is somewhere internal to it. Because why I say this is, you dissolve it into nitric acid and you test for with atomic absorption spectrophotometry with the concentrations of mercury, get it raised. But when you treat it directly through in this format of rubbing it across the metallic plates, you find no discoloration or attack of the mercury on the metallic plates. So it's a gross, I don't say that is some research or publication or something has happened there. It's my way of understanding possibly how it has happened to go with the mercury present there in the Tamra Bhasma. But anyway, Ayurveda Prakash has approved it that you should take the Sir Chandrika Yukta Tamra Bhasma in case if it is Paradamarita.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
Sir, I'm fine, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, there is one question, sir. In tubal blockage, when the tubal blockage occurs due to shushkata of the tubes, fallopian tubes, can we use Abrak Bhasma there?
You consider the patient condition. If it is Vata Pittaja, then you give Abraka Bhasma. If it is Vata Kafaja, then you give Tamra Bhasma.
So, sir, how we will assign here that the tubal blockage is due to shushkata or tubal blockage is due to some other constriction is there?
See, today the analytical measures are really good.
Yes, sir.
You know how the tubal blockage has happened. What's the reason for the tubal blockage? And you can be in general to go with, you can try to give them with Abraka with the Tamra. There is no problem in it.
Okay, sir. Sir, basically they are doing having the history of tuberculosis there. So in tuberculosis also this Abrak Basam will play a good role if she is having the history.
Yes, definitely. I'll say give Abraka Basma with Tamra Basma with Triphala as an Anupanam, or any of the drug which is having Srotos Ramsana action. Triphala is having Srotos Ramsana.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
you. Any other questions?
We don't have any other questions. We'll forward the questions to you in the group in case we get
Yeah,
them.
sure.
And, I, Dr. Praveen.
Uh, good evening, sir. Actually, it's very late at night right now, and it's really fortunate to have you with us through this journey, sir. And you've been a great inspiration. And we have one more question. I don't know if we can take it, Meenakshi.
Yeah, please. I don't think it should be a problem.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So the question is, sir, can we do Abhrak Bhasma with any of the Abhrak Marak Gan according to utility?
That depends on what clinical utility you would like to go with. For every Marana, there is a Falashruti which is given. Say, for example, you go with the Rasaratna Samuchaya, there is a Marana which is being explained there. Say, for example, the one which is taken with Tankana and Haridra and Amalaki Swarasa, and it is given subjected for Putta. There he gives a Falashruti that it can be used in Rakta Pitta Kshaya and Anupana suited as per the disease. So you need to give Abrakabhasma in Rakta Pitta condition, then you need to do Marana of Abrakabhasma in this format only. Then it is more effective. But whereas you go to the Falashruti which has been explained initially, say for example, we have discussed today, in the shloka number 2, Gauri Teja Paramamruta Vata Pitta Kshayagnam Pragna Bodhi Prashamitam Ruja Arujam Vrushyam Ayushyam. That shloka, this is in general. Any method you do Abrakabhasma, this is a Falashruti, but you are very specific, like you want to use it in Rakta Pitta. There in the Falashruti, Rakta Pitta is not explained. But here you want to have a Rakta Pitta as a Falashruti of the Abrakabhasma, then you do it with a Tankana. This method should be adopted. So it is totally different, like which type of Marana I would like to go with. So that particular method should be adopted. Or say, for example, you might claim, sir, I'm not preparing Abrakabhasma by myself. I take it from the market. How should I know like which method of Abrakabhasma is being done and how I should give it to my patient? So there, what I would like to say is you have this problem. It's not only you. Most of the people, because almost 75 to 80% people don't prepare their own basmas. So you procure it from the market, believing like possibly the company would have claimed, like the reference which is given there is been really done for the manufacturing process. Considering them as aptas, possibly. So that particular reference you can take and try to see what is a Falashruti of that method which has been referred by them over the leaflet, and try to use it in that Falashruti. This is a basic concept. The second thing what you need to do, here I said about the Tankana and Amalaki Swarasa, wherein it can be used in Rakta Pitta. Why can't you use them as Anupanam? Because Anupanam is also a strong weapon for us to take our drug in a different module. So what we do is, you have taken Abrakabhasma from unknown source, might be some other company where you don't know for what reference is prepared with. You take that Abrakabhasma, give it to your patient. When you want to administer it to the patient where he is suffering from Rakta Pitta pathologies, give him with Abrakabhasma with small quantities of Tankana and Amalaki Swarasa as an Anupanam, the Falashruti of that particular Marana. Then what happens? Much of the things will act in that particular way. So that's how we can take the benefit of going with the various types of Abrakabhasmas. So you should have various steps. Don't make it universal, like I prepare Abrakabhasma as per Rasatarangini just because it's quite easy. Then I consider the Falashruti of Rasaratna Samuchaya. Wrong. You prepare Rasatarangini, take the Falashruti of Rasatarangini. You prepare as per Rasaratna Samuchaya, take the Falashruti of Rasaratna Samuchaya. In case if you don't want to take in that particular way, you take it from the market, use all these Maranaganas in the form of a suitable Anupanam for your patient condition and try to give it, then the clinical utility is something different. But keep in mind about the general Falashruti which we have discussed in Shloka number 2 today. That can be kept in mind as a basic context. All types of Maranas will have that quality.
Sir, also one thing more, in Maharashtra, there is a query that Kalmishora is used for Maran.
Yeah.
less number of potas. So what should be the quantity of Kalmi Shora if we take it as a Marak Dravya?
Many people are taking 1/4 portion or half a portion of it. Say 1 kg of abraka you have, people are taking 250 grams or 500 grams also. So that is how the Kalmi Sora has been usually taken. But that is more of the times that is the influence of the Siddha system. Because in Siddha, they are using lots of Kalmi Sora for preparing the Abrakabhasma. So in case if you'd like to prepare the Abrakabhasma of that kind, then the Falashruti should be searched from the textbook of Siddha Vaidya Thaira 2 or any of the books of Siddha origin. Then it will be more better, because there is slight difference. I prepare as per the Siddha style and I would like to take the interpretation of Ayurveda, then it's something like mixing two tracks. You take totally of Siddha, I'm happy. You take totally of Ayurveda, I'm happy. But don't mix up both of them. Like you prepare in one style and expect the Falashruti of a different style. Then it becomes really difficult. So let that mixture not be there. You take that of Siddha and practice. Happy. No issue.
With these words,
Thank you, sir,
Thank you.
for generous enough being to deliver your lectures. They're always insightful, something different about molecular level Rasa Shastra. We always know, and that's the best part about it. Thank you so much, sir. And we would like to continue the series because I don't want to limit myself to words while I am thanking you. So it's just gratitude, completely gratitude from all of us who are here on this platform. And we wish to continue this journey further. Thank you so
Sure.
much.
thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, sir.
Everything, sir, in short. Thank you for being our mentor, our guide.
Yeah, sure.
Without you, this couldn't have been possible, sir. This is a fact. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
With this, Shubh Bhratri to all of you, and we'll schedule another session by discussing with sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.